I just really think our government in general, we need to completely redefine our role in governance.
Sexualizing children, confusing children, perverting children, so the state can become the number one influence in their life.
Stop building luxury condos and stop rental eviction.
There's only he and she.
That's right.
There's no they. When I become the mayor, there will be 2 bathrooms, a male and a female bathroom.
Whether it's taking drugs on sidewalks, to bike lanes, 100 kilometers of bike lanes, to men being dressed like women reading to our children without any dialogue or consultation with our families. And so for me, I'm taking that on in this election because that's what people are talking about.
I'm running for mayor, but what I'm really running for is that we all can have more power, that the government will have less power, that the people have more power.
So every morning, you have thousands of people coming from Hamilton, Grimsby, Oakville, Orangeville, using our highways. Their municipal tax goes to the municipality.
They cross the line. They're coming for the children. They want to pretend like this is all about LGBT. No, we don't care. We like the LGBT community.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Toronto, and we're awaiting the beginning of an event called the People Debate. These are the mayoral candidates that aren't getting invited to the debates hosted by mainstream media and such. And lo and behold, look who I bumped into. It's going to be one of the debaters, Giorgio Mammoliti, former City of Toronto councillor. And Giorgio, we spoke off camera. You know, I get it. There's 102 candidates. You can't invite everybody on that stage. It's impossible. But I always thought that the litmus test was if you've ever run or held elected office, which you have, whether people love you or loathe you, doesn't matter. You have been voted into office. That should be enough to get you onto the debate stage, but apparently not.
Yeah, so it was a shock to me because, after 30 years in politics, municipally, provincially, an MPP as well, and parliamentary assistant to 3 different ministers, wrote policy, wrote law, you would think that you'd be a part of the equation in Toronto, especially when you know Toronto like the back of your hand. But the media, the mainstream media in Toronto are a part of this woke culture. And they told me point blank they didn't want me to talk about that. And I think that's a very loud message to me, saying that they just weren't interested in hearing the truth about what's really going on in Toronto. Whether it's taking drugs on sidewalks, to bike lanes, 100 kilometers of bike lanes, to men being dressed like women reading to our children without any dialogue or consultation with our families. And so for me, I'm taking that on in this election because that's what people are talking about. They want to feel safe. They don't want to get stabbed because they have to go to work on the subway. They're afraid to take for their children. Even they're starting to take their children to university by car because they're afraid of the bus system. Unfortunately, the mainstream candidates are not talking about the real issues. They don't even know how to fix the city, but yet they're pretending like they do, right? And that upsets me more than anything.
And Giorgio, when we last spoke, when you were last running for office, I think it might have been 5 years ago. Time flies, my goodness gracious. But the media, the mainstream media, after our interview, they vilified you. They were trying to, paint you as a racist. You made a comment about gangsters at subsidized housing as being cockroaches. And somehow they construed that as that you were saying that about an identifiable ethnic group, but you didn't do that. And lo and behold, that old interview got dredged up when you announced that you were running for mayor some two months ago. What's going on?
So I think it's another phenomenon that's going on. I think in North America, anybody who's right-leaning, who really means well with respect to making sure crime stops and going right to the problem and dealing with it, instead of them, kind of arguing the point or debating it with us, they go after you personally, right? So they can't beat you at the game of fiscal responsibility, and they can't beat you at the game of law enforcement. So they go after you personally.
Giorgio, thank you for your time. I know you literally have to get onto the stage. Thank you so much. Well, there you go, folks. Giorgio Mammaliti, he's a fighter. I don't know how well he's going to do on election day. He's hitting the debate stage. We're going to go in too. We're going to cover this. It's being billed as the People Debate, and let's see what happens.
It puzzles me greatly that every candidate in this debate and all the pundits and everyone else says the only thing you can do is build more housing, when it's a supply and demand issue.
It's the political will to get it done. If housing is an emergency and if immigration is a policy of the federal government, then there has to be a way to ensure that as we're moving forward, we are bolstering that housing.
Smaller government, lower government spending, putting people and families first. We expect to free up over $1 billion from the budget, which we can then use to not only provide homes for the homeless, but provide individualized programs to address the three main causes of homelessness. Someone losing their job, a mental health problem, or a drug problem. When you give the people a place to stay and you give them a way to get back as an integrated member of the community, they're going to be more successful.
Right now, what's going on in the city of Toronto is rental eviction. They're taking affordable housing that exists right now. People have lived there for generations, and what they're doing is they're pretending that they're going to fix the place up to boot those people out and make them very expensive 3 times, and that's how it's perpetual homelessness. Stop building luxury condos and stop rental eviction, Mr. Ford. We promise that.
There's not one solution to homelessness. There's not one solution to affordability. So I just really think our government in general, we need to completely redefine our role in governance and assign much more power to communities and people who can actually do things on the ground.
They're talking about not trusting people. They're talking about making sure their children don't get stabbed or killed if they're taking the subway. They're talking about where they're going to find food on the table. And they're talking about how all of a sudden a man dressed like a woman is reading to their children in libraries and in our schools.
And I think this sexual education has taken the joy out of young people learning and understanding themselves as they grow. They're being programmed to think a certain way. It's up to the families to educate their children. And when it comes to school, it's up to us to teach biology, not ideas and emotions.
A lot of empty land around these large apartment buildings already. Nothing wrong with building in between them and having the private sector do it for us.
I am intimately familiar with SOGI because I fought it in Alberta when it was implemented and took it all the way to Adriana Lagrange, the education minister. And I had mothers go into the libraries and pull out books that were available to 8-year-olds that show male-on-male prepubescent oral sex and books about men raping their daughters. And they read this to children. Then they bring in a ginger man and show 76 genders and all these different pronouns. And they make your children as young as 4 play games where they choose their gender and choose their pronoun. And now they have laws in place that if they can convince your little son Jack that he wants to be called Jill, they'll call him her, they'll call him Jill, and they will not inform you, they will not ask for your consent. And then 6 months later, when Jill puts on a dress at your house and you're all concerned, CPS is going to be knocking at your door wondering why you're not affirming your child's gender. This is about sexualizing children, confusing children, perverting children, so the state can become the #1 influence in their life over the parents, and parents need to stand up to this vehemently and call out these child groomers for what they are, and we need to enforce the laws that are already on the books. There is 171.1 and 171.2 against child exploitation. These are laws on the books, and they need to be enforced.
As the mayor, I would be able to block SOGI. It's not a provincial thing. The mayors have the authority to block specific curriculum. The mayors are the ones that are bringing SOGI in. If you look at Alberta, it was the mayor of Fort McMurray who brought Soji in as a pilot program into 4 different schools, and I called him out on it, and I got him in a lot of trouble for it. So it is the mayor's responsibility. It is the mayors that are doing this.
I want to thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart for coming out to listen to us, because we are the unheard candidates. And all of these people have put their time and money to try to do something good for Toronto. Thank you for allowing us. Thank you. You've had 2 mayors that have done nothing, from Ford to Tory. The city's $1.6 billion deficit over the budget. It's got $700 million, maybe $800 million in uncollected fines that are a decade in default. And if we continue going this way, we're going to be a replica of some of the urban cities that are in the United States that have been let go. And this is our city. I was born and raised here. I love Toronto.
So my philosophy is to sort of reframe this whole question and say, what's government's role when it comes to housing? And I think these campaigns, we act like the mayor can fix housing, the mayor can find homes for everyone, the mayor, and that's not working at all. That approach hasn't been working. So what I think the government needs to do is just eliminate barriers to housing.
Basically, I think that our government has really overreached its abilities, and I think it's time for our government to the power to go to the people, basically. So I'm running for mayor, but what I'm really running for is that we all can have more power, that the government will have less power, that the people have more power.
What's a woman to me? My grandmothers, my mother, my daughters, my sisters, and my partner. But in saying that, I think that everybody should be happy in the moment, because life is a moment in time. But I also believe that you should not punish a heterosexual for being heterosexual. And if the polls were real, right, they're taking a sample, a tiny, teeny sample size of 1.7 million possible voters. And why are they only showing 6 of the poll? Why don't they show the whole 102 candidates where they are in the poll?
There are so many things that individual people could do much better if the government allowed them to do it. And so I think that's really, we're all the ones who are going to make our city safer. We're all the ones who are going to make our city greener. This is a job for each of us, but if the government is standing in the way of improvements in Toronto, then that's the thing we can change.
They cross the line. They're coming for the children. They want to pretend like this is all about LGBT. No, we don't care. We like the LGBT community. You want to have trans people doing drag queen shows? Do it every week. For adults. The moment you want to involve children in LGBT, aka sexualization, and all that stuff, that's wrong. A child needs to be a child.
Thank you, Menzies, for your work. You're awesome. Oh, thank you very much.
Once again, they cross the line. They're coming for the children. Leave the kids alone.
Folks, I know you count on Rebel News to bring you the other side of the story, and sure enough, that's why we were at the People Debate, to listen to candidates that are, well, quite frankly, shunned by the mainstream media and the establishment. Totally shameful. But you know what? We need your help. If you can go to rebelfieldreports.com, that's rebelfieldreports.com, and if you're able to kindly make a donation, that would be greatly appreciated.